Have you ever met a lawyer who was a fashion designer? No? Well, he's one of these three men. Number one, what is your name, please?
My name is Wayne James.
Number two.
My name is Wayne James.
Number three.
My name is Wayne James.
Only one of these people is the real Wayne James, and is the only one sworn to tell the truth. Now, let's meet our panel. Actor and raconteur, Orson Bean. Co-star of Golden Girls, Betty White. Co-star of Night Court, Richard Moore. And to tell the truth's very own, Kitty Carlisle. Here's the host of To Tell the Truth, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, Bert. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our show. Good morning, panel. Good morning. I would like to start things off today with belated but very sincere and heartfelt thank yous to this lovely lady on my right, Kitty Carlisle. Kitty is one of the veterans of To Tell the Truth. She lives in the East and as a result is not able to be on the program every week, but I'm extremely flattered and very grateful that you took time out to fly out for my debut.
I wanted to be here with you.
You live in the East, in New York?
Yes.
Have you never thought of living here in Southern California?
I lived here for a while.
That's it? That tells the whole story right there?
I love California.
It's a fine place to live if you don't take it seriously.
Yes, indeed. And we will not take California seriously, but we will take this first story seriously. Let's get to that first story, represented by this team of challengers, all three of whom claim to be Wayne James. Here is his story. I, Wayne James, am a designing lawyer. It was my grandfather's dream that I become a lawyer, but it was my dream to become a fashion designer. So while in my last year of law school, I designed my first collection. It was immediately snapped up by Bergdorf Goodman for $50,000. Since then, I've designed 4 more collections. Here is an example of some of my work. It's from my spring collection. Susie is wearing a mustard-colored Irish linen cocktail dress with spaghetti straps and a bouquet of linen flowers at the hem. And here is Karen, who is wearing an A-line fuchsia silk shantung jacket worn over a matching miniskirt. And here, Janice is wearing more silk shantung in a one-shoulder bustier with appliques of wooden shells, rocks, and beads. The silk chiffon pants feature a sloping waistline, high on one side and hip-hugging on the other. Although this collection more than meets the promise of my earlier work, I've now taken on another challenge. This year, I was commissioned to design vestments for Jesuit priests, adhering to strict Vatican guidelines. Now, many designers might be daunted by such a request, but after all, isn't it every lawyer's dream to plead his case before the highest court in the land? And it's signed, Wayne James. We'll find out more about this A-line attorney right after this. All claim to be Wayne James, the legal eagle of the fashion world. Kitty, start us off.
Oh, thank you. Number one, did you ever hear of another famous fashion designer with your last name?
Yes, it designs hats in Paris.
Number two, who got you the job doing vestments for the Vatican?
I was actually an altar boy myself at Boston College, a Jesuit school, and 2 priests befriended me, and they took my designs to the attention of the Vatican.
Thank you. Number three, are the vestments heavily embroidered?
No, there's a brocade, a silk brocade that's inset in the front.
I see. And
Richard.
Number one, how do you achieve a slimming effect with clothes?
Well, you use slim panels or darker colors.
Number two, why is green considered a tough color to wear? What's bad about that?
Well, mainly because most people don't have a green tone to their skin, and certainly green eyes aren't prevalent. That's the primary reason.
You've never been to Mars. I can see that right now. Number three.
Betty?
A mustard-colored linen dress with spaghetti straps. I never thought of putting mustard on spaghetti before, but it's an innovative idea. Number 3, did you graduate from law school?
Yes.
Number 1, did you pass the bar?
No, never took the bar.
Number 2, what consists a collection of, what does that connote?
It usually talks about 12 pieces and 40 dresses in a line.
Number...
Orson.
I like the stuff. It's quite attractive. Number 1, now, when Bergdorf's paid 50 grand for it, did you have sample dresses all made up?
Yeah, we'd made up samples for a show. I'd made them up. I had them made them up through the last year of my law studies. But they were ideas that I'd pulled together for years. I mean, this was the first collection, so I was stunned to get $50,000.
Number 2, now, do you have annual shows?
Yes, we have an annual showing in New York and in Paris for both spring and fall lines.
Number 3, it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde existence. As a lawyer, you bring misery to the world. As a designer, you bring joy. Do you ever feel schizophrenic from this?
No, I think one actually works well with the other. They relieve tensions in both areas.
Well, I hope you never sue yourself, number 3.
All right, that signal means we're out of time, but it also means it's time for our panel to vote. And you have to vote for the person you think is the real Wayne James. Is it number 1? Is it number 2? Or is it number 3? And our team of challengers will receive $500 for each incorrect vote with a guarantee of $1,000. And if our panel is fooled completely by these 3 gentlemen, then the team will receive $3,000. Kitty, who'd you vote for?
Well, I didn't vote for number 1 because Charlie James was a famous dress designer, and if you have the same name, you should know who he was. And number 2 said there were 12 pieces and 40 dresses in the collection. That didn't seem to make sense. And number 3 talked about the brocade for the vestments, and I thought that was correct, so I voted for number 3.
That made sense to you, and you voted for number 3. Richard?
Well, number 3 looks too nice to be a lawyer. And number 2, he could be a lawyer, but I don't know. I voted for number 1. Non sequiturs on parade here. Here we go.
That's all right. A vote for number 1. Betty?
I've been lucky all week with the second spot, but this time he was so quiet and so subtle, I went for number 3.
And Orson, what about you?
Well, I hope he comes out with a snappy little nun's habit for his next thing. I voted for number 2. I think he could have been an altar boy back in the days before he wore an earring, but...
All right, so the votes are all in. Let's recap. We have 1 vote for number 1, 1 for number 2, and number 3 was most convincing. He received 2 votes. Let's find out now who the real artistic attorney is. Will the real Wayne James please stand up? It's number 3. The ladies on our panel, Kitty and Betty, obviously know something about fashion, and they came up with the right identification. Let's find out about our imposters. Number 1, you picked up 1 vote. Who are you and what do you do?
My name's Peter Lavin, and I'm a marketing coordinator for health clubs.
And number 2, you got a vote also. How about you?
My name is Rick Joyce, and I'm a Hollywood gossip reporter on the radio.
Well, there were 2 incorrect votes at $500 a vote, and so the team will receive $1,000. Congratulations. Thank you all, gentlemen, for being with us on To Tell the Truth. We'll be right back with a kid who struck it rich after this. Meet our next team of challengers.
Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is Jeffrey Welch.
Number 2.
My name is Jeffrey Welch.
Number 3.
My name is Jeffrey Welch.
Gosh, they all sound like the real Jeffrey Welch, but it's up to our panel to locate that individual, and here is the young man's story. I, Jeffrey Welch, thought for a couple of hours I was a rich man. I found a locked briefcase on the ground near a trash can. I carried the briefcase to a nearby house where my friend Teresa was babysitting. We pried it open and found papers, maps, and a folder. I shook the folder. Wow! Over $2,000 fell out on the floor. Teresa and I hid the money and started making plans on how we were going to spend it. My plan was to buy every tape ever made by Vanilla Ice and Tony. All Teresa dreamed about was getting new clothes. But after talking it over, we decided our parents would probably notice if we came home with $2,000 worth of new stuff. So we turned everything over to the police. They found the owner of the briefcase, and he gave us a reward. Maybe I'll get my Vanilla Ice tapes after all. Signed, Jeffrey Welch. We're going to start the questioning with somebody who feels very comfortable with kids. Orson Bean.
Indeed I do. I have 4 of my own. Number 2, you're a good man. How much of a reward did the guy give you?
He gave me about $100.
$100 ain't bad. Number 3, did you give any of it to Teresa?
No.
Well, I think Teresa's the number 1. How about you? Did Teresa get anything?
I got $150, and he gave Teresa $34.
All right, number 3. Is number 1 telling the truth?
Yeah.
You have to tell the truth if it's you.
Oh, time's up. Let's go to Betty.
Number 3, there were maps, and there was the folder, of course. There were maps and papers in there. What kind of maps?
Survey maps.
And number 2, what were the papers?
The papers were just things about real estate.
Number 1, what was the first reaction out of the man when you found his, when he got his briefcase back?
He was enlightened, and he thanked me for finding it and giving it back to him, being honest.
Number 2, how did he happen to lose it?
He was walking around and he saw someone loading something and he asked to help and he set down the briefcase and forgot about it.
Oh, thank you.
Richard?
Yes, number 1, what's Teresa's last name?
Shen.
Number 3, where did you hide the money?
In a Yahtzee box.
That was going to be my first guess. Number 2, what's a Tony hit? Give me a Tony.
It's a rock group and they sing It Feels Good. That's their best song right now.
Is that right? Number 2.
Kitty?
Now, number 1, you said that the owner of the briefcase gave your girlfriend, what was her first name?
Teresa.
Teresa. Gave Teresa $34?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What an odd sum. Do you know why?
I think that's how much he had in his wallet at the time.
I see. Number 2, did he ever explain why he had $2,000 in his briefcase?
No, he didn't.
Number 3, did you find that peculiar?
Yes, I did.
And number 3, why didn't you give Teresa anything?
Well, first of all, he gave her some money.
Oh.
He gave, like, what Jeffrey said, that he gave her $34.
Uh-huh. So that you thought that was enough?
Interesting play. Time's up, and we have to vote for number 1, number 2, or number 3. Orson, who'd you vote for?
These guys are great. Well, Kitty over here was developing a whole conspiracy with the $2,000 in the briefcase, and Teresa sounded like she was in on it. And number 3 was going along with the whole thing, so I voted for him.
Teresa was kind of getting the raw end of the deal, though, with $34.
There's something very strange. We haven't learned the whole story about Teresa's involvement.
You bet. Betty?
I always form my judgment too soon because I form it when they're upstairs, and both number 1 and number 2 were sort of doing something up there, and number 3 never moved a muscle. But I fell for that. I think that's all he had in his wallet routine. The old, that's all he had in his wallet story.
I see. Number 1.
I voted for number 1 because number 2 and number 3's nose kept growing when they were answering questions. I thought I should...
2 votes for number 1. All right, Kitty?
I voted for number 1. I like the $34, and that's all he had in his wallet.
Sounds like a good story, doesn't it? All right, the votes are all in. Let's recap. Number 1 has earned 3 votes from our panel. Number 2 got no votes. Number 3 got 1 vote. Let's find out who the real, honest, conscientious kid is. Will the real Jeffrey Welch please stand up? Number 3. Jeffrey, we've talked about it already. Perhaps you can explain to us why Teresa didn't get much money. How much did she, in fact, receive?
She got $38.
$38? Was there any
Yeah.
explanation? Was it because that's all the man handed in his pocket?
No, it's just because I found the briefcase, and I went over where she was. She wasn't with me.
Number 1, you got 3 votes. Let's find out who you are. I'm not going to say what do you do because I'll assume all 3 of you are in school.
Well, my name is Michael Pekaranen. I'm an 8th grader at the Merman School, and I like to build and fly model rockets and model airplanes.
Model rockets and airplanes? Wow, good for you. Number 2, what about you?
My name's Wesley Edberg, and I go to Lexington Junior High, and I want to be either a magician or a veterinarian when I get older.
Both of them, noble ambitions. Well done. There were 3 incorrect votes, and at $500 a vote, that's $1,500 for the team. We thank you so much for being with us today, young fellows. Good luck to you. We'll be back to play one-on-one with somebody from our studio. Well, now it's time to play one-on-one with someone from our studio audience. Burton, who do you have for us today?
Alex, today from Dickens, Iowa, I'd like you to meet Bev Chebin.
Hello, Bev. Hi. Here's a chance for you to play one-on-one and win some cash. I want you to meet a gentleman who has 2 stories to tell. Let's welcome Duke Landry. Bev, Duke is going to tell us 2 stories, only one of which is the truth. And if you can spot the true story, then you'll win $500 in cash. Duke, what's your first story?
I am an oyster shucker. I am the 1990 National Oyster Shucking Champ.
Well, that may or may not be the truth, Bev. So let's listen to Duke's second story.
I am a human fly. I scaled the highest building in the U.S., Sears Tower.
All right, panel, to help Bev identify the true story, you'll each have an opportunity to ask 1 question about each story. We'll start with the oyster shucking story. Kitty.
Duke, how many oysters can you shuck in a minute?
A dozen. 12.
Richard.
Duke, you old oyster shucker, you. What's an oyster shooter, you shucker?
A drink.
Betty.
What kind of equipment do you use when you are being an oyster shucker?
An oyster knife.
I never would have thought of that.
Sometimes it just makes sense, doesn't it, Orson?
It certainly does. I knew an oyster shucker. His father was a pickle packer. And his mother was a chicken flicker. How long have I been sleeping?
Stop right now and ask a question.
Number 2, tell me about yourself. Do you eat these oysters? And if so, do they work? How
One
many?
question only. Do you eat the oysters?
Do you like to eat oysters after you shuck them?
No, sir.
You don't? Just shuck
All
them
right.
for other people. Nice.
Well, so much for the oyster shucking story. Now let's go to story number 2 for Bev's benefit. The story about him being a human fly. Kitty?
How did you learn to be a human fly?
I started climbing mountains and cliffs.
Richard?
Duke, you old human fly. You don't look like Jeff Goldblum to me. I don't know. Or Vincent Price, for that matter. Okay, let me ask you this. Where is the Sears Tower, anyway?
It's in Chicago, the corner of LaSalle and Michigan.
Betty?
What kind of equipment do you use being a human fly? I mean, a fly rod, I suppose.
It was equipment I developed myself. It actually scales the same grooves that the window washers use.
Uh-huh.
Orson?
When you scaled the Sears Tower, was it legal?
No, still didn't.
Did they arrest you?
Oh, that's enough.
But
One question only. Bev, you've heard the cross-examination by our panel. It's up to you to tell us now. Is Duke the oyster shucker, or is he the human fly?
Well, I think he might be the human fly.
Duke, what is your true story?
To tell you the truth, I'm the oyster shucker.
Oh, Bev. Sorry, you were wrong. We have a gift for you backstage. I'm sorry it can't be more, but to Duke Landry, our congratulations for stumping Bev, and because of that, you'll receive $1,000 in cash. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And when we come back, we're going to have our very own oyster shucking contest and display right here. We're going to have a demonstration and a bit of a contest here. Betty, this, according to Duke, is the only tool required to be an oyster shucker.
I know what that is.
Good. All right, Duke, show us how. And right. We'll put the clock on this, maybe, and see how many you can do in 10 or 15 seconds. I know speed isn't necessarily the...
Now, you got to watch so you can
byword.
open yours.
You start off at the tail end, right?
Right. I know.
Okay, you start at the back end, you just pry
Go
it
in through
loose,
the eye.
and then you just cut down at the front. Okay, my turn. Wait a minute. He got 3 in there. I'll go with this one. Okay, start at the back end.
All right, go in.
Cut there. Cut. I ain't gonna cut my fingers. Okay, peel it open.
Very good.
Hey guys, I may not be fast, but I know how to pick them. How about that?
Very good.
Luke Landry, thank you very much for being with us.
you,
And thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us on To Tell the Truth. See you next time.
Millions of people are watching, yet they feel so at home.
Oh, I think I'll have to take a pee.
What makes game show contestants throw out all common sense?
Pop another testicle in your mouth.
Find out. Watch Ben Stein host Game Show Moments Gone Bananas. The funniest moments in game show history. Mondays at 10 p.m. Only on GSN.
Number 1, what is your name?
My name is Lisa Perosi, and the nominees are...
Number 2, what is your name?
My name is Lisa Perosi, and the envelope, please.
Number 3, what is your name?
My name is Lisa Perosi, and the Oscar goes to...
Only one is the real Lisa Perosi and has sworn to tell the truth.